Hey guys, how's it going? Danconia, and welcome back to the Overwatch League Roundup 2020 Team of the Week 9. So, it's time for yet another Team of the Week, and we have just seen the results for Week 9 of the Overwatch League, where we've seen a variety of teams, a lot from the Pacific Division, and we've seen a lot of different comps and stuff like that, which has really given us an insight into some of the flexibility of the players in the Overwatch League, including Carpe. Because Carpe really impressed me this week. Spoiler for later on. Anyway, as always, we will start off with the support, because that's what we do. That is the way we do things. Who knows why? We just decide to do it that way. But in the support, we are going to see, first of all, Grey of the Paris Eternal. Now, Grey has had an interesting week, hasn't he? Earlier on this week, or earlier on last week, I should say, we saw Hip retire from Overwatch, from the Overwatch League, from Paris Eternal. Hip was the staple flex support for the Paris Eternal. He had played most of this season. He had appeared in earlier Team of the Weeks this season, Hip. So it was a very big surprise to see him move on due to health reasons, such and such and such, burnout, things like that. We completely understand it. So there was a change-up needed for the Paris Eternal this week, and it meant that Grey came in on that flex support role. He played a lot of Moira this week, and it was an adjustment for the Paris Eternal, and I was worried for them going into this week. But one thing I've been very impressed with is Grey. He's not the only Paris Eternal player on this list, but Grey has really impressed me this week because he has been very stable, very reliable for the Paris Eternal. He's generally been getting really, really good value out of his ults, even though Moira's Coalescence is not exactly like the most valuable ult in the basket, let's say, but he has been getting decent value from that, and I think I really haven't seen a dip in the Paris Eternal because they don't have Hip anymore, and that is testament to Grey's performance this week. It's not been easy for the Paris Eternal, I wouldn't imagine, switching so quickly, but I think Grey has really filled the Hip void very, very well, and I think he deserves a slot in Team of the Week for that. There are some honourable mentions. Izayaki of the Shanghai Dragons has had a good week. Alarm, as always, with the Philadelphia Fusion, very good this week. So there are other names you could put in here, but I have really valued Grey's performance this week. I think he really has come in and steadied the Paris Eternal at a time where they could have had quite a major wobble. But moving on to our main support then, the Lucio player for most of this week, because that's what we've seen a lot of. And I couldn't give this to anyone else but Nicogdh of the Shanghai Dragons. Now, the reason for this is, if you didn't realise, Nicogdh did get the MVP award for the match against, I think it was the Hangzhou Spark. So he had a great performance during that match against the Spark, which Shanghai did win 3-0. I think he was setting up so many plays. He was getting a lot of environmental kills. He was always at the forefront of great plays from the Shanghai Dragons during that match. And again, reliable. It was just really, really good from Nicogdh this week. By far the best performance I've seen from him since his runaway days. And it's good from a general Paris Eternal point of view that they have got a nice support that they can rely on, like Nicogdh. And as I mentioned Izayaki a little bit earlier, that he's also been very good this week as well. So I was really impressed with Nicogdh this week. I couldn't think of anyone, perhaps, maybe FD God, but I don't think anyone really has impressed me as much on that main support role as Nicogdh this week. So I think he has been really, really good. Again, we've seen Moth also for the San Francisco Shock back on that main support Lucio role sort of thing. He's been good, but Nicogdh takes it this week for me, and I look forward to seeing hopefully more performances like this from Nicogdh in the future. But moving on to our tanks then, and things get a little bit interesting. We're going to start off with our flex tank, and we were mentioning the San Francisco Shock just now. Well, this one goes to Choi Hoban. And because Choi Hoban, again, really good playmaking for the San Francisco Shock this week. We expect this from Choi Hoban though. But last week, I was actually pretty disappointed with Choi Hoban's displays. Maybe because he was playing more of that Zarya, but this week he looks massively improved. Again, it could be that the Shock are able to play that more preferred lineup with Moth on the Lucio, but Choi Hoban has been getting a lot more value from his playtime this week. On the D.Va, on the Zarya, he's had a really good week. There have been some good displays from off-tanks elsewhere, with Void, the Shanghai Dragons as a standout name, also Space of the Los Angeles Gladiators also standing out this week, but I'm going to give it to Choi Kyoben this time around, and I'm hoping that this might be Choi Kyoben getting back to his playoff-looking self, where he just dominated things. But moving on to our main tank, and I mentioned the Los Angeles Gladiators just now, this goes to OG, which I'm sure is not going to please too many Dallas Fuel fans, but OG did really well this week, I think, for the Gladiators. He really did command that Gladiators team very well against the Dallas Fuel, and he's finally realizing some of this potential that we know he has got in him, but he didn't really show too much of it when he was at the Fuel. He was kind of feast or famine. But now he seems to be hitting a bit more of that regular good play that we want to see from a main tank player. He seems to be getting to that reliable point now. And this week, more than most weeks, I've seen that OG is reliable to not only keep your team alive, keep that barrier healthy, but also make plays when needed with things like the Earth Shatter. So OG has been really good this week, and I want to give him the main tank role for this week. Moving on to our DPS though, and this is where things get spicy. So there are actually a lot of options for DPS this week. I have had a tough time in narrowing down who I wanted to put in these roles. I was very impressed with Rascal at the San Francisco Shock. Obviously with his Torb play was really, really good. I've been very impressed with Decay. Let's be honest, Dallas Fuel would not have won this week without Decay. I've been very impressed with Striker, also obviously of the Shock. KSP, KSF have been good again, even despite the Valiant's results this week. Birdring, we've also seen Mirror as well, very good for the Gladiators. But I've gone with two DPS I believe have really made a big difference to their teams this week. So, first of all, it is Nico of the Paris Eternal. He looked really darn good on that Doomfist. I'm not gonna lie. I've watched the Paris Eternal stuff back again from this week against the Houston Outlaws, and the amount of picks Nico's Doomfist was getting this week was ridiculous. I honestly think that this week has been the best showing we've seen from Nico so far in the Overwatch League, which is saying something. He's not just been in this year. So I think he's had a really good week. Really good week. And his Doomfist play is really good, and it's nice to see him out of that jail of the May and things like that. So I think Nico really has been able to let go this week for the Paris Eternal after their little break, and he's really popped off. He's really popped off. He really stood out, and someone needed to step up to the plate for the Paris Eternal, because there was no XC this week for the Paris Eternal. To a lot of people's surprise, we saw Soon instead. Soon was decent, but not popping up to the extent that Nico was, and Nico really did. He had that feeling of XC about him, just on that Doomfist instead of the fact that sometimes in fights he was just making it happen, and it was really good to see from Nico. It's really impressed me, Nico, this week, because sometimes I think he can be a bit less than ideal sometimes in some situations, but I think sometimes he gets trapped on certain heroes that don't show off the best of what we can see from Nico this week. His Doomfist, this is some of the best we can see from Nico, and I'm glad to see that we finally get to see some of his best play. But the final person I'm going to be putting in here, he is returning to this team of the week from earlier in the season. We are going to Philadelphia. It is Carpe. I was extremely impressed with Carpe this week. Now, why, you might ask? Because Carpe is consistently very good. And yes, he is. Normally on the heroes he likes, like the McCree and the Widowmaker. We know Carpe is really good at those heroes. He's very often popping off on those sorts of heroes. But what we have seen from this week from Carpe is a flexibility to his roster. I have been critical of his Reaper sometimes. I don't think his Reaper is the best, but this week, with Hisu playing the Reaper and Carpe coming out on the Torbjorn, which I don't think a lot of people would have expected Carpe to come out on, Carpe really did get value. He was doing really, really well on the Torbjorn for Philadelphia Fusion. He was by far their best damage dealer, and it's not something we would have thought would be in Carpe's back pocket. We know he's good on the McCree, we know he's good on the Widowmaker, but Torbjorn, very different to those heroes. And to see Carpe doing so well on those heroes is somewhat of a surprise to me, to be quite honest with you. Yes, Philadelphia Fusion were against the Washington Justice, so you kind of have to take it with a pinch of salt, but nonetheless, I was very impressed with Carpe's Torbjorn this week. It was a toss-up between Carpe and Rascal. I think Rascal was very good and very comparable to Carpe, but Carpe had a little bit longer on the field, shall we say, and I think he made a bigger difference to his team. ANS was playing the Torbjorn in the early stages for the San Francisco Shock this week, and he looked good, not as good as Rascal, but he still looked good and was still getting value, whereas Carpe, he played in the entire time for Philadelphia and was very, very good throughout. So I've been very impressed with Carpe this week. This is probably one of the weeks where Carpe has impressed me the most, because he pops off on the McCree and Widowmaker, as I've said before, but to see him doing so well on a hero that we are not used to seeing him on, and probably he's not used to playing all that much, is very impressive. And it shows me the flexibility that I've been worried about from Carpe from time to time. Is he a Widow McCree only sort of guy? But he's not. We have seen good flexibility from him this week, and I look forward to seeing more of it in the future. More Carpe Torbjorn. I'd look forward to it. But for now, thank you guys so much for watching this video. If you liked it, give it a like, subscribe if you're new, and I will see you in the next video. See you then.